Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about tips for planning a trip to our guests. And I will start by saying that no matter what, we are, as we said before, in love with our guests. Means we want to know about them as much as possible, and we actually want to put in consideration how we can build for them an itinerary that will fit for them. Today we're going to talk a little bit about tips when you're building an itinerary and small ideas that are basic for our fundamental thoughts and the things that we need to think about. So I'll start by really when you think about what is how the map of Israel look like, and it's a long map. So we have 4 main areas where people stay. One of them is Jerusalem, one of them is Tel Aviv, one of them is the south. The south, usually we take people to stay around Mitzpe Ramon, but it can be also the Arava Valley or Eilat in some cases. And in the north is a big variety, depends, first-timers, second-timers, but we try to find a place that are somewhere in between the Golan and the Galilee. So it will be easy to visit both of the places, because the first assumption that we want to have is, please, as less as possible moving from hotel to hotel. The hardest thing for people is to unpack and pack their things, unpack and pack their things. Also for us, logistically, try to think always behind the scenes. When we have a vehicle that is full with bags, when we do a transition, we want to think where this vehicle gonna be parking. So usually on transitions, when I have bags in the car, I want to be inside national parks that are paid, that I have much less chance the car to be broken in. I want to have places that are safe to park and not big hikes that we can do along the way and leave the car unattended. So that's an important part. Arrival day. Arrival day, everyone arriving on a different day of a week means that we can really look on the start point of the itinerary within different locations. Usually we love to start the first day, unless people arrive very, very early, or in Jerusalem or in Tel Aviv. How do we define? We love that our guests staying in Jerusalem over the weekend, because most of our guests are secular or reform or conservative, like modern Jews that are coming. So they don't observe Shabbat like the Orthodox do. Some of our clients do observe Shabbat, and we need to remember that, and they also love to stay in Jerusalem because at the end, that's the holy city. But there is a moment that we cannot give up for anyone that is coming, that bring that uniqueness of Israel that don't happens in any other place, and that's Friday evening in Jerusalem, where you see a city that is full of hustle and bustle, that turns into this spiritual moment when the roads, at least on the western side of Jerusalem, disappearing, the cars are disappearing. You're almost like walking into the old city where we want to see the Kabbalat Shabbat by the Western Wall. You're walking inside and it's one atmosphere in Jerusalem, and then when you come out to wherever you're doing dinner is a completely different city. Remember, Shabbat in Jerusalem itself is easy to take people outside. We love to do our Dead Sea Day outside of Jerusalem, but we also can stay inside Jerusalem and go to the old city, to the non-Jewish sectors or parts of the city. We can also go outside a little bit to Abu Ghosh, or go out for a little hike in an area like the Sataf. But Shabbat in Jerusalem is when we say Shabbat is Friday night. Means that whenever people arrive, you want to plan that they will be on that weekend. The one weekend, if they have one weekend, we want that one weekend to be in Jerusalem, means we want to plan it this way. When do we start up in the north or in the south? So usually when we go to one of these areas, we want to stay there 2 or 3 nights. In some seasons, the hotels even have a 3-night minimum. Means that we will go there when people are landing in the morning. We anyway need to keep them up to 3 o'clock when there is a check-in to the hotel. And we can use that day to a little bit rest on the car and spend the time in a long driving, but very important to break it. People land, they've been on a transatlantic flight. We never put something on the first day that have to be booked or have to be paid for or need to be arriving on time, because we want that day to be as flexible as possible. We don't know how was the flight. We don't know if they were stuck in the airport. Usually people that fly from the United States, they arrive 3 or 4 hours before the flight, sometimes 2.5. So that means they left their home. So it's like 4 or 5 hours. Add to that another 12 hours, 10 hours of flight, sometimes 14 from LA. And you have very, very tired people that you want to have as much flexibility as possible. One of the ways to do that flexibility is to really go north or south, but only if I have 3 days before Shabbat to come back to Jerusalem. So let's say if you land on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, I can think about going up north or south. But if people land on Wednesday and I take them up to the north, so you need to do 1 day going up north on Wednesday, then I have only Thursday and Friday. I already want to be afternoon at the Western Wall, so it just don't work. So the last time or the last date that we can take people when they are landing north or south will be usually between Sundays, or sometimes if they land on Saturday, we can start or south or north. The last day will be Tuesday, because Friday, again, we want to be afternoon at the Western Wall. We use each area as a home base. So just because of that reason, not to move from hotel to hotel. So Jerusalem, we can explore Jerusalem itself. We'll have usually 1 day dedicated for the old city, 1 day dedicated for the new city. And we can go outside to the surrounding area outside of Jerusalem. Classic day that is very, very good to do is go down to the Dead Sea. Again, things that we offer in each day are usually the places that people want and must see, but some of the other things based on their interest. The other area that we love to go outside of Jerusalem is the area of Beit Guvrin, the archaeological dig, the wine country of Mitzpeh Masoah, and the area of the Judean Hills. Will be a perfect day for to do outside of Jerusalem, coming back and stay in Jerusalem. That's Jerusalem. Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, usually we will use Tel Aviv and the coastal line up to Haifa. Sometimes we take the western side or the coastal line and we do it from Tel Aviv. So even if some people need to go to Akko or Rosh Hanikra, it's not our favorite day because it can be very long, but it's better than to be in the north and drive an hour and a half and come back to the north. You know, if we stay in the Kinneret or the Sea of Galilee area and drive to Akko and Rosh Hanikra and come back to the north, it doesn't make sense. So we want to keep as logic the least amount of traffic that people need to go through. So we want to keep it as more efficient as possible because that's our professional advice. So things need to be in order. So if I'm driving from Tel Aviv and coming back to Tel Aviv, I will never go up to Akko, come back to Haifa, then go to Rosh Hanikra and come back to Tel Aviv, because it's zigzagging and people actually feel it. That's why we always have Google Maps. If you don't know a place or you don't know the flow of the itinerary, put it on Google Maps. That's why we have this map literally here in the office. So that's Tel Aviv. Now, north and south, as I said, usually we would plan a trip in the north or in the south based on 2 or 3 nights. Means that what we have is we have one transportation day. So transport day from the previous area. So if we drive from Jerusalem to the south to Mitzpeh Ramon, we love to break the ride. Any ride that is longer than an hour or an hour and a half, anyway, will need to have a stop for a bathroom break. So why not to do that stop in some kind of an activity? So keep it in mind. We break the ride, then suddenly a 2.5 hours ride that broken into, I don't know, 1 hour and an hour, another 45 minutes and another 45 minutes is a different story than a 2.5 hours ride. And that's what we love to do. So if you're driving from Jerusalem to the south, we might stop on places along the way, like Beit Guvrin. We can visit the Bedouins. We can go to the Gaza envelope and visit the Gaza envelope. We can do different things that are really on the way. Even the Dead Sea. We can literally do the Dead Sea in this day and transit to the south. We also don't love to transit from the north to the south, because that's a very, very long drive. So we usually, if we see that people have in their itinerary enough nights, usually if we have like a 12-day itinerary or 14 days, something that is more than 10 days, then we don't just have free hotels or free base camps that when we plan, but we can have more. Then usually we would love to kind of maybe start in the north or the south, come back to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem based on Shabbat. Then we have half of the country traveling. If we go from the north, we arrive to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv area, and then we go from that area to the south and come back again to the center, what put us very close to the airport, usually very easy for people to enjoy. So our favorite, I think, in general, like the most, like I would say, preferred one will be to finish in Tel Aviv and have maybe even start in Jerusalem, create the connection, go to the modern side of Israel. We really try to adjust the itineraries for the season. So season. We try to avoid problems that we have with inside, behind the scenes in logistics by the right planning, because we can offer a visit to the north in the winter. But for adults, not a big deal. People can grab an umbrella, even can get one from Let Travel, and walk around. But if you have families with kids, no matter what the ages, just don't think about it. If for some reason we don't have luck and we have rain in the north, we turn a trip that can be a success into a trip that needs to be in closed areas. So especially active families or kids that cannot pay attention or are not like history freaks, means like myself, you really can't. You really can't send them in the winter to the north. So usually our itineraries in the winter month will be Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and the south as the core and the center. In the summer, we're going to go to the north because the south is too hot. Too hot. It's just impossible to stay in the south in some areas, especially like Eilat or the Dead Sea or the Arava Valley. Mitzpe Ramon is the one place that you can stay because at night it's much cooler, but again, we need to present and explain that usually you will wake up early and then go and have a siesta and enjoy the time in the middle of the day and come back to do activity afternoon. So those are the general ideas that we have regarding the directions and the places where people stay. I think the most important part is we want to build a story. When we're building an itinerary, we're building an itinerary to a new person that we don't really know. So we spend a lot of time to get to know them. We have a questionnaire. We have a Zoom call that you're going to have to understand them deeper. Ask the question, let them ask the question, create that connection. They need to see you as the authority. Means that we as an authority, we want to get to know them as much as possible. So every little sentence that they say along the way that you might use. For example, if somebody says, I just had like my mom that is joining us, she just had her hip replacement. So you're right, hip replacement, because then we know to ask her on the ground, look how much it can be amazing if the family on the ground suddenly asked by the guide, hey, or even us, we can send in an email, what's the situation now, 1 month before the trip of your mother that had a hip replacement? Those are the personal touches that we want to have. But when we plan an itinerary, we really want to think what will fit for them. We also want to think how we challenge them. We build days and trips based on the basic knowledge that in the morning, especially families with kids, but also it's with adults, the same thing. In the morning, people are concentrated, they are rested, they can have more educational content, more educational activities, they can be and take part in things that really give them engaged and teach them something. As more afternoon we go, we want to have it more flexible, more open into what we call in the office in some way, planned spontaneous. Means we keep a lot of times, we keep times that can be used if we love the area or to adjust it, or the guide that literally within 2 days become the best friend of the family and of the kids and can really adjust and fine-tune this itinerary to fit like a glove to them without even feeling that, whoa, we planned it for a year, we have such a big ego. No, we don't. We literally want the people to really, really enjoy. So we tell a story. Like people connect to stories. They can see an itinerary. They love to understand the logic. We love to explain that logic. So if you don't know why you build that in that order, it means that you really need to practice a little bit more about that logic. So you need to know, I built it in that order because we're going from Mitzpe Ramon to Tel Aviv, and on the way I want to stop for sandboarding because it's a great, beautiful activity in the morning, is active. Then I want to go to a salad trail. I usually put things that are educational in the morning, I know that, but here salad trail is perfect combination because it's a hands-on learning. I can study about agricultural technologies hands-on and really try it and go and eat the different things that I have on the farm, but also it's a possibility for lunch, like I can have lunch there, so it's fit perfectly for that. And then I want to drive to Tel Aviv. It's kind of on the way. I created an itinerary that is breaking the ride into 2 different stops. Each stop have a meaning, and then I arrive to Tel Aviv. After 3 o'clock, I can do check-in. I don't need favors from the hotel to put my people in, and 2 o'clock. We usually can get that. But if we plan right, it's just stress-free for everyone involved.
What do we do, Benny, if a client asks for something, but it doesn't really fit in at all with their itinerary?
So, look, we need to be very professional. On one hand, we want to do like as our clients' commands, or let's say it like what their wishes, we want to apply to their wishes. But we literally need to give our personal opinion, even if they liked it, or put a big warning so they know that, that they chose it. Give you a few examples. Sometimes people get an advice from their friend. Oh, we just been to Israel, and they've been in the autumn. The weather is perfect, it's nice. They were on the way to Petra, and they stopped in this beautiful spot with sand dunes, beautiful sand dunes called the Kasui sand dunes. And now you have a client that is in August here, and they also go to Petra because they want to visit Petra. Petra is also visitable in August because it's high in altitude and most of it is shaded. And anyway, a day trip to Petra is, most of it is in the airplane. But the sand dunes, you can't really stand or even touch with any bare skin the sand dunes. So we cannot stand aside and say, hey, I'm going to put it. We have to give our professional opinion, or many times the fights are on much more obvious things. Like they will say, let's go to the north, and they come during December, our peak season. And during this peak season, we have 15, 20 groups on the ground. And if they are in the north and we have a day of rain, we have 20 tours to find for them plan B solution. So leave on the side that they're going to be in a very bad situation because they will need to change and adjust and do at the end something that they didn't plan. But it's probably going to slow down the traffic, create traffic jams, create pressure, people get wet, they become uncomfortable. It's all at the end. If we're not giving our professional advice, will bite us at the end because people hiring us to give them professional advice. Okay, I think we're good.
What happens, Benny, if
Wait.
we build the itinerary, but then the hotels that they choose don't exactly fit in with the way the itinerary is flowing?
So when we book hotels or when we build a first draft itinerary, second draft itinerary, when we still didn't make a decisions on hotels, my advice is to guess based on what you know about the client, what they told you. We usually in the questionnaire asking them, in the Zoom asking what type of hotels you like to stay in. We will ask, okay, I understand you love 5-star hotels, but would you be open to a new idea like, I don't know, glamping? Or would you be open to a new idea like a bed and breakfast with a very super nice host in the Golan Heights? Or stay on a kibbutz? Would you be open for something like this, even that you know that the quality of the rooms will go down? So you pretty much get some answers from them, and you need to guess when you build, especially the north, because Tel Aviv, Jerusalem don't really affect. The south, it's a big area, so we usually, if we go to Kedma, so we do the same thing, it's the difference is not so big. Kedma or Mitzpeh Ramon, but even then, Kedma and Mitzpeh Ramon is two different approaches. Like you literally need to drive half an hour from Kedma hotels, Sde Boker, to Mitzpeh Ramon. So you will never put there a night activity, stargazing, that is in the crater because it's just too far of a drive. You cannot drive 40 minutes each direction for a night activity. But if you're in Mitzpeh Ramon, 15 minutes or 10 minutes drive is nothing. So you need to do a little bit of adjustments, but if you don't know and you didn't choose a hotel yet, I completely recommend to really guess. Guess, because most of the guests are coming knowing what they want or knowing their budget for the hotels, and it's making it much easier.